Hey guys, so I have my June reading wrap up and this was such a good reading month for me. I actually read 4 5-star reads, which I feel like it's either I read all the 5 stars at once or I don't read them for months. So I don't know if anyone else is like that, but overall it was such a good reading month. I just loved everything that I read. And last month I read like a lot of just meh and kind of boring books. So it was really nice to have all of these good reads in June. So as per usual, I will be sharing these from least liked to most liked. Fortunately, at the bottom of the list is When the Stars Go Dark, and I gave this like a 3.5-star rating, and I thought I was going to like this more because I've seen some people on Bookstagram really enjoying this. This is about a detective who specifically works for solving like child abductions and things like that, and she's had some trauma. Something really bad has happened in her life recently. We don't know what it is, but it's caused her to go back to her hometown, and when she's there, there's a missing persons case for a young teenage girl that she ends up getting involved in. And so it's all about the case, trying to find this missing girl, and then also her personal life and like why she's struggling so much and the life that she kind of left behind and escaped to this new life. So it was okay, like it definitely kept me interested and I enjoyed it. I'm just not someone who really enjoys like reading anything about things happening to kids. Like it always bothers me, and there was just a lot of like little things sprinkled throughout this book about past cases she'd worked on, and I really just don't like getting those thoughts in my head. So that was definitely more of a personal reason why I just didn't really like this book that much. But I liked the investigative quality to it. Like I love a good detective mystery novel. So now getting into some 4-star reads, I have 2 audiobooks. The first is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. So Nathan and I listened to this when we were road tripping up to Georgia for a family vacation, and it was the perfect audiobook for a road trip. It was very interesting. Matthew McConaughey did such a good job narrating his story, so I would highly recommend the audiobook, specifically if you're planning on reading this. I mean, just having him tell the story, it makes it that much more real, and just learning about his life was super fascinating. He's quite the character. He has quite a few interesting stories to share, and we both just really enjoyed this. We thought it was really fun, and I'm glad we listened to it. My next 4-star read is The Girl with the Louding Voice, and this was an audiobook as well. I think I already said that, but this is about a young girl growing up in Nigeria in a small village, and her dream is really just to go to school, to one day get a job, and to be able to support herself, and she loves learning, and that's really her whole life's goal. And we're following her journey kind of to get there, hopefully, and she goes through some really hard things, but she has such a good spirit about her, and I loved her resilience. I loved reading about her. I was rooting for her the whole time. I do have one 4.5-star read, and that is My Favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. So I'm still working on reading Christina Lauren's books, so I read this one this month and I really loved it. It's a friends to lovers romance, and it has a You've Got Mail quality to it, which is also partly why I loved it so much, I think. So our main character is friends with this group of guys. She's actually best friends with this one guy in particular, but she's kind of just seen as one of the guys. They all hang out together. There's like nothing at all that has ever attracted her to any of the guys, and none of the guys have ever really been attracted to her. It's just like a totally platonic situation until that changes. It changes actually right away, like in the first chapter or 2, and dealing with the repercussions of like her and her best friend becoming more than just friends, and what that implies, and how she sees herself as a part of this friend group. And it's good. If you like friends to lovers and you like Christina Lauren, then I would just recommend giving this one a shot. It was like a perfect book for reading after When the Stars Go Dark, because I needed something just happy, and this was it. Believe it or not, we're now getting into the 5-star range. So I'm gonna share this one at the bottom of the 5-star list. I can't really put any of these 5-star reads in particular order, except for my favorite book of the month. But first 5-star read I'll talk about is The Truth About Forever by Sarah Dessen. This was a reread for me. I had read it back when I was a teenager a few times, and so reading it again was just very nostalgic for me, but I also still really enjoyed it. I really couldn't put this book down, even though I knew it was going to happen because I'd read this book a few times before. There was just something so comforting about reading this, and it's definitely a good summer read. So if you've never read The Truth About Forever when you were growing up, I don't know if you would necessarily love it as much as an adult, but I personally enjoyed it like so much this other time around, reading it now as like a 28-year-old. So this is about Macy. She is between her junior and senior year in school, and her father passed away a year and a half before the book starts, and ever since he passed away, she kind of changed who she was as a person. She became a perfectionist of sorts, and her whole like motivation in life is just to do good, to get good grades, to be well-rounded, to get into a good college. And perfection is really important to her mom as well, and they've never really grieved the loss of their father. She's just did this perfectionist coping mechanism, and her mother kind of the same way, threw herself really hard into the family business. So they are living these lives not so fun. It's summer break. Her mom hires this catering company called Wish for one of her events, and this catering company is all chaos. There's always something going wrong. It's just a giant mess, but there's a lot of friendliness within the people working there, and it's really a family, and she finds herself drawn to this catering company, and they end up changing her summer. So I really love this. There's also a romance in it, and it's a really good one. I loved it. My next 5-star read was Sunflower Sisters by Martha Hall Kelly. This is a Civil War era historical fiction story following 3 women, and if you've read the other books by Martha Hall Kelly, it's the same kind of format where you're following like a wealthy elite socialite New Yorker. You're following a slave, and then you're also following the plantation owners. A lot of times reading this were just infuriating, as you can imagine, and it's following over the span of, I want to say, around 5 years or so. I just get so sucked into all of her books, and even though she always writes a character who is just detestable to read about, like in each of her books, one of her characters, you just cannot stand it, but she does it so well, and I just love the different perspectives you get during the Civil War era time especially. It was so good. I really would recommend it if you like historical fiction, and if you've read her other books, then you're gonna like this one as well. All right, next is That Summer by Jennifer Weiner. I gave this one 5 stars. I don't really know how to talk about this one without spoiling it too much, but it definitely talks about the Me Too movement, and there is a woman who has been raped in this, and I think that's important to just going into it, that this talks about that, and it talks about the aftermath and how that changes this woman's whole life. So you're following 2 different women in this story, and they're both like middle-aged women, and one is a wife to this man with a young daughter. Just the mother struggles, just where she is in life, if she's satisfied with her homemaking, like if she wants more, and the other woman, you just have to read more about it. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought this was fantastic. I loved it. I mean, it also made me super furious. There were conversations that were happening, especially near the end of this book. There was this whole like dinner table conversation, and it was so infuriating to read about. I mean, like, there's definitely a lot about privilege and like the boys will be boys kind of phrase, and how like wrong that is and how harmful that can be. So it talks a lot about that, and it was just really frustrating to read about that a lot. But it was still so good. Like, I gave it 5 stars, so it was worth the frustration. So my water bottle's here. I ordered the Summertime Fine water bottle from Sydney's website, and so that just got here. I'm so excited. Okay, after this video, I'm gonna go and grab that. Another 5-star read that I read this month was my book of the month selection, and that's The Maidens. I didn't read this author's other book, The Silent Patient, but I do have a hold request for it at my library because I know it is really well loved. This is about a young woman who's lost the love of her life a few years before this book starts, or a year before the book starts. Semi-recently, she's still very much in the grieving stage of things, and her niece, who she kind of has guardianship over, she's very close to, she's in college, and one of her friends ends up dead. And she goes to the college to kind of comfort her niece, to be with her. And along the way, she starts investigating this murder as well. And she finds herself in the middle of all of this drama that she really has no business being in. But that's just how some of these books go, I guess, just like a cozy mystery. It's always just like this random bystander who ends up becoming super intricately involved in the story and the case and solve the mystery. This was so good. I kind of saw what was going to happen, but I didn't know the full extent of what was going to be revealed. So I like that I was still surprised, even though I knew some of the things that were going to happen. Overall, really enjoyed this, especially for this setting, because it does have that dark academia setting. So cozy, and I loved it. Like, this would be such a good read for the fall time for sure. So if you don't read it now, read it when the weather starts getting colder, when you can get cozy next to a fireplace. Like, that's definitely the feeling that I was getting from this book, and I think that's really why I gave it 5 stars. And my favorite book of the month was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I have a full review for it. I'll link it below if you're interested in learning a little bit more, but I'll kind of keep it a little on the shorter side here. This is about a guy who comes to consciousness, and he has no idea what he's doing on a spaceship. He doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know who he is. He knows literally nothing. So while you're reading this book, his old memories are coming back to him as he's trying to figure out what he's supposed to be doing. It's so good. I don't want to say anything else because I just want you to experience the whole book for yourself, but it is very well paced. There is constantly this tension as new problems are arising, and he's solving these problems, and then more problems happen, and then he's getting these revelations from the past about like knowledge that is actually helpful to him in the present. It's just the best thing ever. So highly would recommend Project Hail Mary. But those are all of the books that I read in June. Like, the best. I don't know if I could have a better reading month than that. It was just such a good reading month. So many favorites. As per usual, if you've read any of these, let me know what you thought about them. If you share the same kind of opinion as me or something completely different, I would love to hear about it. But thank you so much for watching, and happy reading. So pretty. Look at it. Look at it. It's huge too. I'm used to using a water bottle with a straw for the past year, so this will be some adjustment, but oh, I love it.